Australian motorsports culture has its own unique flavor, and naturally, the tracks follow this trend. But that often makes the difficulty level of these circuits almost maddening at times. Phillip Island won't make it an easy one today as we get ready to watch round 5 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes, our director Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. For a little more info on this seaside circuit, why don't we head down to our track guide. Welcome to Phillip Island. As the name implies, this track is located on a splotch of land off the south coast of Australia near Melbourne. While there's been plenty of racing here for close to a century, the track's current incarnation has only been around since the late 80s. And this version is a doozy. With only 12 turns spread across the roughly 4.5 kilometers, it's a decently fast circuit. But what really makes this place stand apart is the incredible variety in those few corners. From negative to positive camber, early apexes, late apexes, blind crest, hairpins, sweepers, if you name it, it's probably got it. On top of that, the front stretch tends to offer up a slipstream with its incredible length, but it then forces the drivers into a game of chicken by chucking them into the frightening doing. Corners like Lukey Heights stretches a car's grip to the limit and then shocks you with a sudden downhill braking into MG. Retaining something of an old-school twist, unlike most modern courses, Phillip Island has earthen embankments running along many parts of the track. While it's meant to keep the cars safely retained within the circuit's confines, anyone unfortunate enough to manage to jump them will be faced with a ton of damage for their troubles. A variety of types of racing take place at the track, including motorcycles, lower-level open-wheelers, and touring cars. Possibly the most well-known among those is the Australian Supercars Championship. With the Aussie reputation of having dangerous, difficult, and challenging circuits, Phillip Island certainly holds up to the standard. The beautiful views of the beach and the ocean may lure some of the fans in, but there's no doubt that the incredible racing at this unique track keeps them around. Well, they've got gorgeous views literally right out to the ocean, Joey, so hopefully the drivers won't be too distracted during the lap here.
Well, they better not be, because it is a fast circuit here at Phillip Island, and 12 turns, 2.76 miles in length in total, and there's a couple good passing opportunities, but I think the name of the game here is carry the speed wherever you can. Don't get caught out from any sort of dirty air, especially in that turn 1, 2, 3 complex. But the back half of this racetrack, totally different than the front few corners. There are some significant slowdown areas that you got to get it all the way down into those low gears, probably even first gear. And then when we talk about those slow speeds and these 79 cars, you have to be so careful with that accelerator not to spin up those wheels. Got to remember, there's no downforce being made at those slow speeds. And then also, you got to deal with a little bit of elevation here, especially through the back half, the back few turns. So there's going to be quite a few things that these drivers are going to have to deal with today here at Phillip Island.
This is a very difficult track. I know it always gave me trouble, but the championship is certainly an interesting situation because we've now got our two leaders on 2 wins each. Now Costa missed a round, so that's why he is as far behind as he is, but the drop points will help him out tremendously on that front. Gernot Frische, the last few years, really, his kind of MO has been just racking up the points now. So he's not usually in the hunt for the championship, but still kind of hovering around and being a bit of a menace for those that might have problems in front of him. Dylan Freckleton, excellent season for him, up to 4th in the points with Jack David Spickett. Bit of a jump behind there before things really tighten up on their way down into 10th. Then, of course, we've got the Formula 2 Championship that they also run in this series.
The only difference is that I rating, right? The cars are all the same. Andy Hugel currently leading by 12 points over Daniel Gallus. Another little bit of a gap back to Keith Herner. But if you notice something silly, 3 points separating 3 drivers for third place. Keith Herner, Zahul, and also Jess Moore all wanting that third place position. Then you got Cam Porter hanging out there in 6th, and then once again 4 drivers within 2 points of each other. That includes George Batev, Bjorn Ackerman, Kurt Clapper, Patrick Samaran, but we're only about halfway here in this championship. Still a lot of races to go, but very, very close early on.
I always love that F2 championship. It always seems to wind up being very tight. As today's race itself, it's going to be 28 laps around this track. It's an open setup series with a lot of corners and a lot of long corners around here. I imagine getting some wing in them is going to be important, but watch out for that long straight, the Gardner straight at the front of the course. It's going to make it interesting if you can trim it out, because you can make some passes there. Now, no spare car if you wind up with some damage. And while there aren't many walls close to the track, there's a lot of, well, let's call them embankments that can definitely damage the car. So you can wind up in the pits and out of it if you hit those a little bit too hard. Drive-through penalty at 17 incidents and a DQ at 25, but there's not really much in the way of paved runoff here that can rack those up. So don't think that's going to be as much as an issue. And right now, with qualifying happening in what is very foggy conditions, which is understandable since it is the morning by the sea, only Barry West, I see, able to set a time from here. Everybody else has gotten out very quickly and put their times in.
Yeah, and I actually think that I don't know if Barry's going to be able to complete this one. Yeah, it looks like he will be, but right now it is Gernot Frische on top of the board. He is your provisional pole sitter with a 1:18.22. Juan Costa right behind him at a 1:18.26, only 0.04 of a second.
Do you see Miguel Moreland look like he's popped out there? So I think he's going to try and get a lap, and his first one got deleted. Barry's second lap, unfortunately, was discounted as he had an off track somewhere. So a bit unfortunate for him. There's Moreland now on your screen with the same paint scheme as Barry. As we learned, that was actually a team paint from these late 70s. And Moreland, I'm showing on his second lap, but we're hearing he may have done 3. So I wonder if he had a wreck on that first lap. And so this next one also won't count. If so, that's unfortunate. Time's up anyway, so guess it doesn't matter. It's all a moot point, and Gernot Frische is going to put himself onto the pole for this one. Excellent run for the number 3 car over Juan Costa. I'd say Gernot is back in terms of his speed. Antti Lepisto is going to be starting in third, as Timothy Vandenberg will be P4. Then you've got Seamus Power starting 5th, followed by Andy Hugel in the 6th spot. Sam Ryman all the way up to 7th here in top split. Patrick Samaran will be next to him in 8th, as Jean-Francois Boscus will start 9th, and Daniel Gallus will round out your top 10.
On row number 6, we have Daniel Banker and AJ Roper. Then in 13th, we've got Keith Herner, Cam Porter starting in 14th, and then the last few out here, Barry West starting 15th, Dylan Freckleton in 16th. We're going to have to keep an eye on that number 4 car, and Miguel Moreland starting 17th, our final car on the grid. I was going to mention something real quick about Dylan Freckleton. He's on that number 4 board, so he is going to be very, very fast at the back of the field. Same thing with Barry West. I would expect watching those 2 cars start to move their way up early.
There you can see wind actually gusting around quite a bit. Also very common at this track with it being so close to the ocean. So that is going to keep the drivers on their toes, but very cool in the morning, very foggy. And of course, that means high humidity out here. Also on the opposite end of the iRating story, Timothy Vandenberg, number 14, and he's starting 4th. Even he was impressed with himself on that, as it looks like the cars are ready to go. Engines now start to rev as the lights come up and the green flag is out. They accelerate off the line, and Gernot Frische actually gets away pretty good. Looks like Antti Lepisto is the one that bogged down as he falls all the way back to 5th position. Costa going to slot into 2nd. Vandenberg now up under the podium here on the first lap as they now hit the southern loop.
Through the fast, sweeping left-hander of turn number 2. You got cold tires, got to make sure to keep that nose all the way down towards the curve here, and then you've got this short little chute before we hit turn number 4, this incredibly slow right-handed apex. And with these cars side by side, there will be some moves made down to the inside.
Frische can hold this over. Oh, and that was a little hiccup, I think, for Seamus Power. Looks like he's going to lose a position maybe to Antti Lepisto who gets himself back into fourth at least. But for Frisha, this is going to be important that if he can hold Costa back, that could set himself up well for the end of the race. Keith Herner with problems with it. Looks like potentially Barry West or Moreland there, as well as Freckleton off the track in Siberia.
Yeah, it's such a shame because Freckleton had gotten a great start early on, but I actually think it was Keith Herner that kind of started the mess as Lepisto finally gets around there for the third place. So Timothy Vandenberg having a few little issues. Now Seamus Power is trying to take advantage as well. They're side by side coming through the final turn.
Oh, real shame for Power there because he was doing so well at the start of this race. Same thing for Vandenberg, falls back to fourth. A little bit of a battle behind them. Looks like Sam Ryman versus Samaran. We've seen those two race against one another before, side by side, and Ryman is going to back out of it through Doohan and give up sixth place.
Yeah, but he's fighting back on the inside here, so Ryman not giving up, and Samaran just stuck on the outside of the racetrack. That puts him on the inside for turn number 4, but we've got this little left-hand kink here. It looks like Sam Ryman will move up into that sixth place, and maybe, never mind, way too deep goes Samaran off the track.
Oh, but that did compromise Ryman, and AJ Roper picked up the pieces when he saw that happen, so that moves AJ into sixth. We have a replay, I'm assuming, of that wreck into Siberia on lap 1. It looks like this is with Freckleton, and he definitely was involved in that.
Yeah, so watch the bronze car right in front of Freckleton, so he's about one row up, and it's going to get spinning here in this left-hander, and unfortunately Dylan, as well as I believe it was Miguel Moreland, just really had nowhere to go and got collected in it all.
I think that was Herner in the bronze car that you mentioned. Yeah, so he kind of started the spin, the other two unable to avoid. Battle for the lead is very much on. Costa right behind Frisha, and I think this will definitely be a story all day long, coming through the Gardner Straight into Doohan by the pits. It is such a long straight, longer than you'd think, and it offers up passing opportunities, but it'll take some bravery into turn 1.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. Bravery into turn 1, yeah, it's incredibly fast, but you don't have a very big brake zone, so we see a lot of drivers try the outside line around turn 1. We also see drivers try to dive it towards the apex, but it's not just over in turn 1. Turn 2 is incredibly fast, sweeping around the left hand. So, Joe, I think to your point, not only turn 1, but that sweeping turn 2, it's also an opportunity depending on where you are side by side.
Exactly. It's going to likely carry on into there if you haven't finished the job. It does look like Wanmi is actually pretty fast today because he's sticking right to the gearbox of that number 3 and not letting him get away. So until Gernot gets his wheels underneath him here, he's going to have his hands full as we check back with West.
Well, Barry West lost one of his litter mates early on in the race, but he is still racing. He's chasing Andy Hugel in that blue and red STP-themed car, and then you've got Cam Porter right behind, and actually Cam's got a fantastic run out of turn number 12. Going to try to use that slipstream, and this is that top speed you were talking about. The one thing that's interesting that I'm noticing here, Joe, they're only about 172, 173 miles an hour, so I feel like some of the drivers have opted for more downforce, while others might have trimmed it down a little.
I wouldn't be too surprised. I know I would want to crank it up around this track and just kind of have to deal with that main straight. Meanwhile, it looked awful close down through Miller there, formerly the Honda hairpin, and Costa wasn't able to try and make a pass this time. Now they hit the top half of the course as it rises up to Lukey Heights. Another extremely difficult left-hander, this one.
This is going to be a frustrating race for Juan Costa, I feel. We know how consistent Gernot Frisha is, and he really doesn't make very many mistakes, if any at all. And with him out there in clean air, it is going to be tough to try to get around him as we're watching AJ Roper now. He's just got a nose ahead of Jean-Francois Boscus trying to hold him off.
Roper starting this race in 12th, up to 6 already, looking at maybe getting into the top 5. This is definitely a good day for him. So as they come onto the main straight, is he close enough is the question, and it doesn't look like it.
And, you know, I miscalled that. It's actually on the back of Seamus Power there is what AJ Roper is chasing. So a fantastic race for Roper, up 6 positions already, trying to take 5th away from Seamus.
Ooh, if he can get a good run here, is back to Barry West in the meantime. And 2 cars off track. That's Hugel, and it looks like Daniel Banker having maybe a bit of contact and winding up out in the gravel.
Well, that was right in front of Barry West, that car that you were calling right there, and I just think it was Andy Hugel that got in a little bit too deep, so we're watching Cam Porter now all over the back of Barry West, and it's just going to kind of be the same thing that I talked about with our leaders, except that Cam had a big old wiggle there getting into turn number 6. I mentioned it at the early part of the show. No downforce in the low speed. You got to tiptoe through there.
West only got 1 of his qualifying laps, so he's also kind of climbing through. Roper with another attempt down into MG, and Power will deny him for now. Oh, as the car gets sideways, that dirty air disrupting Roper's downforce, and that will cost him.
See if he can maybe crawl any of it back on the front straightaway here. I'm watching the top end speeds, and they're almost identical, so that tells me actually that maybe AJ Roper is running a slightly higher downforce setup if he can't even match the same top speed as Seamus Power right in front of him. And you got to remember, Roper's got the draft to help pull him along too.
Yeah, it's a good point. He definitely was chucking it into the southern loop. So I think he's relying on some of that downforce to help him in these corners get closer to this number 5 machine, but no dice there. Back to Freckleton, who had another spin recently and has carried on. I think that was down into MG corner that he experienced that. He's still catching up to Hugel here. And now Keith Herner behind him, also recovering from that opening wreck as they head down into Miller, but they're going to stay line astern.
Trying to get the power down coming out of these slower sections here. And you made the comment, Dylan Freckleton had that second spin. So as long as he's got no damage, you know, we're still early on in the race, only about 1/3 of the way through this thing, not even. So there is still time to go up there and make up some positions for sure.
Flying down into Lukey Heights and up and over the crest down into MG. Nobody able to do anything through there as they'll switch back once again now at the last 2 corners on the track. And this is a long, fast sweeper through Swan onto the main straight, flat out in these cars. And it's going to be important to get as good as run as you can.
Watching, they've been stalling out about 172, 173, and that's exactly where Freckleton is, about 174. Now in the draft up to 175, and look at all the scrapes coming off of Hugel. That is just the car sucking itself down to the road, using all of those aerodynamics, trying to get all of that grip that they can.
And remember, yesterday we saw at Portimao the Lotus 49s getting up to 180, and these things topping out at 170. So that tells you what those downforce, what those wings do to blunt the momentum, because this is still the same engine. That is the same Ford Cosworth that is in the back of these Lotus cars.
Just a lot. Oh my goodness, look at this move from Roper. Now we got contact with Power, unfortunately. Looks like both of them are going to come off the end worse off, and looks like both have damage, in fact.
Yeah, Roper struggling to once again get the car going, and Power looks like he had to actually take a tow, so he's in pit lane already. AJ losing a position to Jean-Francois and Sam, and they're trying to run away at this stage. There's AJ chasing down Sam. Roper, no, excuse me, he's being overtaken by Daniel Gallus. Another position gone.
Yeah, and I was looking at the steering wheel. It looked straight, but that doesn't mean that there's no damage on the car. And it was going down into that turn 10 complex, going down the hill. It always is inviting to try to throw it down the inside, but got a lot of things working against you, including gravity. And unfortunately, just a little bit of contact was made.
Yeah, I feel like that hairpin is so much less a passing zone than you would think just looking at it because of that downhill. Meanwhile, Cam Porter trying some different lines in comparison to Barry West here to keep the air on those wings, but it's not working out quite yet. Barry West still over top of him. 2 of our regulars in this series fighting out for what is 9th place right now.
And I know that AJ Roper just had that mistake, so his lap time's a little cattywampus out there, but these two cars, maybe it's the pressure from Cam or maybe it's Barry's pace, but they are closing it in on Roper and Gallus right there in front of him. And oh my goodness, this is the lead. So Juanmi Costa and Gernot Frischa are going at it here in turns 1 and 2.
Couldn't make the pass that time, but Costa may be tired of just sitting in that dirty air, wanting to try and go through. Frischa will deny him this time. They'll fly through Stoner up towards Miller as they look for the braking. Costa unable to get the overlap this time. This is where there's fewer long straights on this part of the circuit as it twists back and forth up through Siberia and now towards Hayshed.
I can report to you that Cam Porter got the pass done there on Barry West going into turn number 1. So now it is all up to Juanmi Costa to try to get around Gernot Frischa here. And there hasn't been more than about 2 or 3 tenths separating these two drivers the entire race. And it looks like maybe Juanmi has just found a little bit of an extra groove.
Yeah, he is looking strong today. At times, Lepisto is stealing their fastest lap, though, so they got to watch out. He's only a second and a half behind. They mess around too much, they could lose that gap that they've built up here. Here we go again. Costa right on top of him. Frischa gonna go off to the left-hand side. That will open up the inside through Dewan, but not into the southern loop where it switches back to the left. Doesn't matter anyways. They don't go side by side this time.
I think that's the smart move from the leader, is let the car have the inside in turn number 1, because turn 2, the left-hander, it is so dang long. You're going to have the shorter distance around, but here is the problem. Juanmi Costa is all over the back and almost might get into Gernot Frischa. Thankfully, he gets the car slowed down enough, but he thought about a move there into turn 4 and then backed out of it at the very last second.
That number 1 car was getting out of shape under braking. So yeah, I don't think he meant to get that close, and there was a panic of don't hit that gearbox, and thankfully they stayed out of one another. They might be fierce rivals, but there's a lot of respect between these two. And if Gernot can pull a win over Juanmi, I think if I know him, he's going to be proud of himself today.
And you mentioned Antti Lepisto just about a half a lap ago. I'm sure that he is loving what he is seeing. He's saying, Costa, yeah, go up there and fight with Gernot. That's exactly what I need, because if you do, it's going to draw me right into the battle, and then all of a sudden we'll have 3 cars to party together.
Remember, Lepisto's leading the points right now, so he needs to get ahead of Juanmi in his hopes of keeping him at bay in the championship points. Look at how foggy it is still out here this morning. And as they come down through Dewan once again, a little farther back this time. So Costa may be regrouping, going to try again later.
119.1 out of Lepista, a 119.3 out of Costa, a 119.1 out of our leader, Frischa, out front there. So they're all pretty much dang near even in terms of that lap time. It could just be a little bit of that chess game. We know a lot of these fast drivers, they play that game of cooling down the tires versus running as fast as they possibly can. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Good move there by Freckleton. He now moves up into 14th, past Andy Hugel. Up in front of him, he's got Miguel Moreland, the other one involved in that wreck with him. And then Daniel Banker is the next up the road as they look to try and hit their markers down to the braking. Both of them looking to the inside very late. No change of position, but that was interesting.
Yeah, just kind of searching for that clean air, and I think that Freckleton might be a little bit more aggressive than some of these cars around him. I think that he knows he's pretty gosh dang fast, and he's got a fast race car, but you still have to pass cleanly. That is part of playing on the playground.
Dylan with a long day yesterday running solo in the Road America 500 for the IMSA Vintage Series, so he might be a little bit tired from that one, but looks like he's still got some verve in him as they're going to come around to the main straight once again. Ooh, this is seeming like a much better run from Moreland, who's staying close behind. This is the gap between himself and Banker.
If you can use that slipstream to full effect down the front straightaway here, and just, you see it's inches by inches that you close in on that competitor there right in front of you. He's not going to be close enough here into turn number 1. Searches for that clean air down at the apex, and you see Banker just really putting his car right smack in the middle of the racetrack, doing a good job blocking whatever clean air that Miguel Moreland wants. But Joe, here we go. This is an opportunity into 4.
This is exactly the run that he needed. Coming up to Miller here. Defensive line from Banker. He knows he's susceptible, and so is Moreland. Freckleton actually manages to get some overlap, and thankfully Miguel gave him the space, but he also tried to make a bit of a late defense himself.
Yeah, I think it was Banker that just kind of postured himself right in the middle of the racetrack. So Moreland said, okay, I'm not going to try. And Freckleton said, hey, if you're backing out that early, I'll take an open door. Thankfully, no contact was made. No positions were changed. But I have a feeling Miguel Moreland probably noticed and took a note from that. I'm not going to do that one again.
Certainly. It's going to be difficult for that 15 car because he's got pressure behind. At the same time, he's trying to put pressure in front. So is Costa on Freesia, trying to do everything he can to shake our leader, but nothing's working quite yet. You mentioned it, Joey, that Gernot is a seasoned veteran. In fact, he has the most wins of anybody in this series. He knows how to hold people off and take wins, and he doesn't do it as often these days, but I'd say he hasn't lost his touch.
It's just down to consistency, right? If you don't make any mistakes on the racetrack, a track that's difficult to pass at, well, guess what? Everybody's going to have a difficult time getting by you. You combine that with Gernot's just raw speed. You mentioned he's the most winning driver ever in the 79, so you know he's going to be fast. If you're Gernot, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually turned off the mirrors, and this is just a practice session out here for him, Joe. I'm not sure if he actually knows Costa's behind him.
Well, Wanby's trying to wave and do anything he can to get his attention, and we have seen him manage to get side by side at least once. Now, he's been having trouble since then, so maybe Gernot's been just covering himself off a bit better since and trying to make sure that he doesn't have to deal with that anymore. This time, once again, Costa just a little bit too far back. He's going to have to get creative, I'm sure, to get himself a good run somewhere that Gernot's not expecting it.
Yeah, I think turn 4, this turn up here is a possible opportunity, but in order to be close enough in turn 4, you got to pretty much be side by side in turn 1. That's what allows you to kind of grab that slipstream down that short chute straightaway. So in terms of something different, yeah, I think the move is going to have to come in the middle of the racetrack versus kind of the atypical places, but you got to be close enough to get there first.
So as they head through Hayshed and towards Lukey Heights once again, nice gain on the entry into the corner from the number 1 car, but still not close enough for anything. Plunging down the hill into MG. If he gets himself a good exit here through these last 2 turns, he could maybe try again down into turn 1. But yeah, I mean, I think Gernot maybe has trimmed the car out himself, because look at him stretch away there. Is now Miguel Moreland. We come back here to the back of the pack instead. He's still not able to get by Banker, and he still has Freckleton behind him.
He's trying to do whatever he can to get that clean air to the front wing. We're coming up to turn number 10, this downhill braking zone that we've seen quite a few bits of action already so far. A little bit of a lockup there from Moreland, but it stays these 4 cars. Banker, Moreland, Freckleton, Hugel is the caboose on the train as we round out of turn number 12. Swan onto the front straightaway one more time.
The only car we've lost so far is Seamus Power. So this is essentially the back of the pack battling that we're watching, because Keith Herner is getting close to them as Dylan Freckleton. Ooh, could he get the inside into turn 2? Moreland says, no, you can't. He covers it off as they switch to the left-hand side, go through the double apexer, and now get down on the power.
As we accelerate up here, I believe this is coming up to what is turn number 4, as they got to get hard on the brakes here, and just all 4 of these cars running incredibly close lap times. That last lap time from, in fact, all of them between a 120.0 and a 120.2 between those 4 cars.
Hugel might be the most aggrieved out of this group. He started in 6th position, and he's down to 15th right now, but he's not really doing anything to make his presence known. He's just kind of hanging at the back of this pack, so I'm not sure if he has some damage or if he's just kind of waiting.
I'm just curious. You know, I think that there's a mixed bunch back here. Freckleton in the number 4 board has had a lot of problems early on in the race, and then remember, Moreland went off track at the same time as Freckleton, so I just feel like there's a few of these drivers way far in the back that have pace, and that's why we're seeing the battle. Is just that most of the time they're up battling 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. It just had some problems early on here.
Some serious posturing, too, as you can see them weaving down the Gardner straight. And Freckleton, again, keeps getting close to being able to take the inside into the southern loop, but can't seem to seal the deal, as Miguel Moreland is closer than ever. Banker's going to know it. I'm sure he's going to defend. Not enough. He's going to leave the inside just open enough. And unfortunately, here comes Freckleton, as Miguel maybe was a bit too timid under the braking. Dylan can't manage to hold on. They're going to switch back into Siberia now. Big slide from Moreland. He loses the rear, and that's it. He spins.
Yeah, unfortunate there for that number 15 car. Freckleton just got him off of the racing line, and I'm convinced that's sometimes all you need to do in terms of a pass. You don't actually need to get it done. Just move somebody off of the racing line. Let them do the hard work for yourself.
Things have changed up a little bit, because they've not only caught Patrick Samaran, but I just checked, and Cam Porter had a bit of a half spin, and he's fallen into the clutches. So this group has changed complexion extremely quickly.
Oh, down the front straightaway one more time. There you see Cam Porter in that white and red car leading this group. Then comes Samaran, then comes Banker, and then it gets really tight back here with Freckleton and Hugel. But I think you're right, Joe. Looking at the horizon out here, I think it's just going to compress up one more time with all 5 of these cars.
Not much change in conditions. Temperatures still low today, although the wind continues to gust around and change. That could be also something that's catching a few of the drivers out. Thankfully, it's not huge swings in terms of being 20 to 10 miles an hour. It's staying right around 5 to 10 miles an hour that it's hovering around. So it'll just be light little pushes on the car. Here we go again. I think this is a lot closer for Wanby. Question is, what's he going to do different this time?
I've been watching him the last few laps, and he has been this close the last couple, and just can't really do anything out of the southern loop. Turn 2 here, he just kind of gets all crossed up. But Joe, this is a great opportunity. This is the best run Costa's had, and we're going down the short chute to turn 4.
Freisha defends. He holds the right-hand side, covers that apex, deep braking for Juanmi Costa. Knows this might be his best chance as he squirms on the power, trying to get the throttle down. It switches back in his favor. Now coming through as he almost slides into the side of Gernot Freisha. He'll catch it before they make contact.
Yeah, but this is going to provide an opportunity into the tricky downhill turn number 10. So got Costa. He's actually going to be on the wrong side of the road. If he's on driver's left, he backs out of it, so no move is going to be coming down the hill here. I thought maybe something could have happened, but I think Costa's just going to look for a little bit of a better opportunity. He was side by side through several corners. That's step 1.
That was a hell of a four-wheel drift, too, that he had through Siberia and somehow caught. Again, you could tell he did not want to make contact with Freisha. And he's going to get another go at things. Once again, he's very close. The car looks strong here late in the race for the number 1 as he comes down into the southern loop, but still not working out as he once again setting himself up for Miller like he did last lap.
I really like this move. If he can get to the outside of turn number 4, let's see if Gernot defends the inside again, or if he flip-flops on his strategy. Puts the car right in the middle of the road, so that forces Wanmi to make a decision. And once again, almost into the gearbox goes Costa. Gets it stopped in time, but that third car, it is now a party because Lepisto is under 1 second.
Oh boy, this is going to be fun if he can make them have to think about another factor in this battle, because it's been tense enough between the two of them. Just a side note that AJ Roper had a spin. He falls down to 9th spot because of that incident. It's same place he's had trouble all day coming out of the penultimate turn where they're approaching now. And a bit of a lockup, I think, from Costa that time.
I caught that too out of that second place car, a little bit of an inside front right lockup going into turn number 10. And it's not going to affect his performance at all. It just shows you how far Costa is really pushing the car, how much on edge he is. And you see Gernot with the biggest gap he's had down the front straightaway when he does the serpentine, whatever he can to try to hold that gap.
All right, so 9 laps to go now, and it's starting to come down to a 28-lap race, so we're very close to the end. Lepisto down to 0.7 of a second. He continues to pull them forward to him, and that slipstream is certainly helping. Coming down to the braking for the first time in about 3 laps. Freesia does not have to defend.
It'll be interesting to see how Lepisto changes the complexion of this battle. Does he get up there and be really, really aggressive, since he's been sitting all by himself all race long and he can finally go up there and fight? Or does he let those two just kind of do what they've been doing as we check in on this battle for what is 4th place? Looks like that's Boskus going down the inside of Vandenberg, and we've also got Sam Ryman right in that battle.
Sam with an excellent day out here. He's up 1. Maybe he can get 2 more in this, but Timothy Vandenberg, his lap in qualifying doesn't look like a fluke. He's been doing a good job holding them off. Granted, it is a big gap up to the podium, so it's kind of our leaders and the rest of the field here.
Go down into this tricky turn 10 brake zone. Everybody always gets choked up down there, and it actually looks like Vandenberg just kind of got out a little bit wide. So if he's struggling with any sort of tires or getting some pressure late in the race, Boskus and Ryman might smell blood in the water.
Certainly. But the question is, do we have the aggressive Sam today? Do we have the timid Sam today? What's he going to do to try and race these guys? Is a move to try and cover things off. Tim tries to block the inside into the first turn. Boskus doesn't have the overlap on him. Both of them slide out as they diamond the second turn, and then coming off the southern loop towards Stoner. It's a good exit for Tim. You think he's going to be far enough ahead unless Jean-Francois got a big dive here.
Going down into turn 4, they're going to stay line astern, and I don't know what happened, Joe, but something definitely happened to the number 2 car of Lepisto. All of a sudden, 5.5 seconds back off of that lead.
Ooh, wonder if he had a bit of a spin or just a slide. Yeah, he kind of turned the car sideways coming through Miller, turn 4, and he's going to get it going once again, but that cost him. He was so close to being a big factor in that fight. Meanwhile, we continue to watch the battle for P4, which is not close enough to capitalize on Lepisto's mistake, but I think Jean-Francois is closer than he was before.
I really feel like the number 14 car, the lead yellow car, is just kind of slipping up a little bit each corner, and that's allowing Jean-Francois right behind him to just close it in every single corner, and even down the front straightaway here, using that toe, using the slipstream. He's going to look to the inside here, gets the door shut by Vandenberg, but he's close enough in turn number 2, backs out of it a little bit early. It's all about getting the run, the exit out of the southern loop here. This provides you that opportunity into that turn 4 brake zone.
Again, he could be aggressive. We saw him take a look last time, but he couldn't quite manage it. He's going to do the same thing again, just showing himself in the mirrors and covering off the inside, also probably in case Sam tries to be sneaky.
I think what I'd be careful of, though, if you're Vandenberg out front, is that if you're too far off of the racing line, we've seen several cars just kind of slip up those rear tires and spin out of these corner exits. If you're not on the racing line, you don't have all of that grip. Just got to keep it in mind.
Yeah, that's what's been plaguing AJ Roper, who's had multiple problems getting the throttle down in some of the slower corners. Let's see if anybody slips up here out of MG. They all look good to me as they now start to pick up speed heading into Swan. And Timothy just seems to pull away just enough at the start of the straightaways.
You're right. And then it's Boskus that closes it up down the straightaway. He's got a monster top-end speed. I'm looking 6 miles an hour faster at the end of the straightaway here than what the number 14 car has in front. So I'm sure not only he's fighting the car through these long sweeping corners, and there's a move up the inside. He's going to have to catch the car. There was no place for him to go on that one. Thankfully, didn't loop it around.
I don't think Boskus expected that to happen. It looked like maybe Tim went a little bit wide in front of him, had to check up, and thankfully, yeah, no accident out of that one. They stay as they are with 4th, 5th, and 6th being Tim, Jean-Francois, and Sam.
Just kind of running in all of the dirty air. I think that Sam Ryman actually might have a little bit of an opportunity. These front two cars, they've been battling hard. I've noticed that Tim in the number 14 has kind of slipped up on a couple of the exits, and then we saw Jean-Francois have that huge moment there in turn number 2. So if anything, Sam Ryman is just sitting back there, taking his notes and saying, hey, where can I attack at the end of this?
Might try something there. We'll see if he's willing to throw away potential 6 if he wants to try and get into the top 5. Ooh, this is a lot closer. Boskus has got a chance. Question is, which way is he going to try and place the car? Vandenberg is going to hold the left-hand side and then cut back down. No overlap between them once again, heading into turn 2. But still, the car goes very wide for Tim in that left-hander. It seems to be the line that he just kind of likes.
They have 2 different lines. They have 2 different lift points there in turn number 2. And does he throw it down the inside? No, once again, just not quite close enough. Tim leaves the door open, but Boskus just isn't there in order to make a move and not go crashing into the side of the number 14. So tip of the cap, right? You got to realize when you can actually make that move and be aggressive. And Boskus hasn't reached that point yet.
He's doing a good job of it. I'm sure he wishes he was past him, but we're going to check a little bit farther back. We haven't looked in on this battle in some time. And now that AJ Roper had his issue, Cam Porter is on top of him, and Daniel Banker doing a good job recovering from the early incident, back to where he began this race in 11th.
Just kind of hanging out as the caboose on the train here. Like you were saying, Cam Porter, Daniel Banker, they're all trying to get up. AJ Roper had a little issue earlier on in the race as well. So all 3 of these drivers kind of in the same situation as Cam, just crawls all over the back of AJ Roper. This might be a good opportunity going down the front straightaway to utilize that slipstream.
Indeed, Cam, one of our onboard cameras typically is the number 12 has a decent run, but it looks like he might have a little too much wing because AJ kept him almost equidistant all the way down the straight.
I think the one benefit of the downforce here is through turn 2, though. Can he keep the nose down to the apex and the foot flat to the floor on the accelerator? And AJ Roper is able to scoot out just a little bit, so Cam's not going to have an opportunity in this break zone here. I think that if you're running the higher downforce, it is really tough to live in dirty air, but that's where you have to live in order to get the opportunities elsewhere on the track.
Back through Siberia. This is a big climb, a lot of camber on that corner. And so you reach up at the top of the hill. Things level out for a bit down through Hayshed, and then once again, uphill you go, up into Lukey Heights, where it reaches the top side of the course, the highest point on the circuit, and then back down we go into MG.
A little bit of a lock up there from Cam Porter on the front right as AJ Roper takes a wider arc through that 11 complex, and then it's all about how quickly you can get on the gas and stay on the gas through that final turn. Do not lose any sort of momentum, and it's just kind of a stalemate down the front straightaway here. Cam Porter just doesn't have the top end speed to make a move into one. He, like I said, he's got to live in the dirty air, get closer, 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 and then be able to pounce.
So far, that hasn't come to fruition for him. He's only got 3 more laps to do it, so he's going to need to get right on top of him, I'm sure, if he hopes to try and make that pass stick. This is one of our closer battles right now. The fight between Costa and Prix has actually gone apart by almost 2 seconds, so Gernot, I think, has turned up the wick a little bit. That or we had a mistake from the number 1 that we didn't quite catch.
I'm going to call that the Freesia factor, Joe,
yeah.
because he just gets faster and faster throughout the race, and if anybody else makes a mistake, well, he's just going to leave them and just keep on chugging. That's what he does.
I like that. Well, I'll keep that in my pocket, the Freesia factor, and certainly is coming into play. Ooh, a little mistake there from Roper as Cam Porter tries to capitalize. Maybe this is the shot that he needs, as he's going to be a lot tighter to the gearbox coming off of the penultimate turn. Now through Swan as they pick up speed and come onto the Gardner Straight. No, he drops off once again.
And Roper even had a little bit of a wiggle there through turn number 12. So I I really feel like the only reason why Cam Porter can't go up there and make the pass is just purely because of that wing level, right? The car is a good setup underneath it. He seems very stable. He's had some good racing today. He's just unfortunately lacking the top end speed, but this is an opportunity. Here we go, out of turn number 2. He's going to have the little kink here. He's just got to stay to the left-hand side into turn number 4. Can he outbrake Roper going into the outside around this long hairpin here? We're actually going to get Banker up there, try to sneak his way in the inside. So Cam Porter not going to get the pass done, but can defend off a Banker behind him.
Great racing from all of them. I mean, the awareness of Cam to be on the attack, see that that car is coming in from behind, leave him enough space. Fantastic stuff. Frisha takes the white flag as it is 1 to go. Lepisto taking the fastest lap that time by, oh no, something's happened to Vandenberg. He's off the course in the wall and he's retired with 1 lap remaining.
Oh no, and I just got a glimpse of it. It was all by himself out there. So now Cam Porter is just going to be all over the back of this number 9 car. We've seen that the white and red car doesn't have the top end speed, but can he stay close enough on the straightaways and through 1 and 2 that turn 4 opportunity opens up again?
He's close, but I don't think this is going to be enough. Once again, we've seen even when he's right on top of him, just can't seem to get the pass done. We'll have to check on this in a bit because coming around to the checkered flag, Gernot Frisha is in the lead and by the biggest gap that he's had the entire race. A 2-second margin is going to feel just relaxing to him after the rest of it as he takes victory here at Phillip Island.
Looks like Juan Micosta will finish in second and Lepisto will round out that podium. And oh my goodness, Joe, Cam Porter threw a Hail Mary and it stuck in turn 4. Totally took Roper by surprise and now he's in 8th.
What's going to happen here at the end of the race, though? Is Roper going to try and return the favor? He looks a little too far back for that. He might be experiencing a bit of damage, too, we have to remember, with the contact he made earlier on. He is able to stay ahead of Daniel Banker. Is behind him, Jean-Francois Boscus and Sam Ryman come across less than 0.2 of a second apart. Now down to the line. It looks like Porter is well far away enough. Roper also not susceptible to Banker, so they'll finish as they were. Only 12 cars going to finish on the lead lap for this one. More attrition than I anticipated us having at this track. That's going to take us to a quick break. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews after this. Welcome back to Phillip Island. Round 5 for the Sunday Grand Prix Series sees Gernot Frische return to the top step once again. This is becoming more common lately. Juanmi Costa could not get by him and, in fact, fell off the pace at the end. Antti Lepisto's race was almost determined from the very start as he did not get off the line well. Later, he also had a spin and had to settle for third. But from there, you have to go almost 30 seconds back to the next car. Jean-Francois Boscas with fourth. Sam Ryman gets himself a top 5, and Daniel Gallus finishes 6th today. Barry West, 8 spots gained to finish 7th out there as Cam Porter finishes P8. And then you've got AJ Roper 9th and Daniel Banker rounding out the top 10.
Then in 11th, we have Andy Hugel back here. Keith Herner finishing in 12th. Dylan Freckleton in 13th. Tim Vandenberg, unfortunately, that late race spin, he falls all the way back down to 14th place. A lap down, does not see the checkered flag. Patrick Samarin did, in fact, finish the race a few laps down. Unfortunately, Miguel Moreland and Seamus Power also did not finish today.
Looks like we've got our winner ready to talk to us. Gernot Frische here taking another victory. Gernot, congratulations. I know we probably sound like a broken record because we mentioned that you have the most wins pretty often, but I'd say that experience leading came in handy today.
Yeah, basically yes, because I had quite some pressure from Juanmi all race long. So yeah, routine helps with that. On the other hand, I was surprised to be on pole position, and I'm even more surprised to win this week.
Well, it looked like Juanmi was very, very strong through most of the race, but at the very end, you pulled a gap. We didn't catch it. Did he make a mistake, or did your car just kind of come to the fore?
I think both. I think he had one slide, and I was running pretty low downforce, maybe a little bit less than him, and I think that's made it a little bit more hard in the beginning of the race, but yeah, maybe my car was a bit better in the end.
Well, it looked like it was tough to pass today, and that's going to be kind of similar next week at Oulton Park. Do you think you can stick it on pole and get to the first corner first next time?
No, definitely not, because I'll be missing at least 2 weeks now, two or 3 weeks. So I'll give the other ones good races, hopefully.
A bit of a shame as that would have been fun to watch, but still, congratulations on the win today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a shame because Oulton Park is such a great track for the car. Yeah, but I'll see you later this season, and yeah, congrats to Juanmi and Antti as well. Bye-bye.
That was Gernot Frische taking the victory in Phillip Island today, as behind him, it was Juanmi Costa. Joey has caught up with P2.
Nice job out there, P2 for Juanmi Costa. Congratulations on it.
Oh, thank you.
So, got to ask you how the race was as a whole, just following Gernot Frische. It seemed kind of frustrating for you.
Yeah, I think I took it too easy at the start because when I was faster than him, because Antti was very close and less than 2 seconds or so. But it's easy to say now. I should have attacked before because Antti ended doing a spin. It's hard to say if I should have attacked before or not, because you don't want a 3-car fight. Then it gets too messy.
Saw that with Lepisto closing in. And then I got to ask you, what was the last few laps? Did you just kind of run out of tire there at the end or make a mistake that you lost the slipstream? What caused that 2-second gap between you and Gernot?
I think a combination of me not being the best one, managing the car on low fuel, and Gernot doing it very well. I think the last lap I matched his time, but it took me a few attempts to match it.
Well, you got to be happy with the second place. Congrats on that podium, and thank you for coming out here and racing with us again on a nice Sunday afternoon for you.
Thank you, and congratulations to Gernot. Awesome to fight with him.
That was Juanmi Costa coming home second today here at Phillip Island.
And if you peer through the fog and the haze, you can eventually see Sam Ryman, who got a top 5 back there. Sam, congratulations on a great race out there. It looked very, very difficult to pass. Were you just kind of biding your time with that group in front of you?
Yeah, a little bit. I knew if it got down to the closing laps, I was going to have to be a little bit aggressive. It's weird because I'm not this group. They share setups every season, and I'm not using their setup this season. I'm using like an ancient setup from 3 or 4 seasons ago that I tweaked a little bit. And I was thinking, oh, this probably has too much downforce. I'm not going to have any top end speed. And then I did the race, 2 hours ago, and that went well. And then we qualified 7th, and I'm like, okay. And, there were a couple of incidents there early on, and also Timothy going off at the end, which helped out. I could tell Jean-Francois was making a couple... I didn't like his line through the last chicane there, and so I kind of knew that if I could keep close, I might be able to do something, but I think he was more trimmed out than me, and I wasn't going to be able to beat him in that drag race. But yeah, 5th place, 152 official iRacing points, which is my 2nd highest road score of all time. I had to go and look it up. It's not the highest. I was a little disappointed there. I got 153 one time.
It's still pretty darn close. Congratulations on that. You also had a bit of a scare. What happened between you and Patrick Samaran down into the hairpin?
Yeah, so there were 2 races at the end of last season, I think, where Patrick got ahead of me at the start, and I was just stuck behind him for the rest of a race because of our setup differences. I couldn't do anything about passing him. So I actually did have him targeted a bit. I wanted to keep him behind me in the early laps, but then things started getting a bit crazy, and so I was kind of just like, well, I'm going to race competitively because there's a bunch of cars behind me, but I'm not going to do anything stupid. And I have triple monitors now, and that, I have the wind mirrors turned on, and I could see someone was coming down the right side way too hot, so I had to open up the steering, and I got a 0x from it. There was definitely contact, but fortunately, it wasn't any worse.
Well, glad you were able to avoid it. Certainly was a moment of excitement for us. Congratulations on a top 5, and hopefully we'll see you at Oulton Park.
No, not the next 2 weeks. Going to Virginia for my mum's birthday, so you'll probably see me back at Portimao, which will likely be my first race there.
Well, happy birthday to your mother, and thanks for chatting with us. That was Sam Ryman finishing P5, and that's going to close us out with a big thank you to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. Also, thanks to the team today, Joey, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. The next race, as we mentioned, Oulton Park. That'll be Sunday, April 21st, back to our normal time at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And the reason we're early, because if you check out our other broadcast, we have the Majors TCR Australia at Bathurst coming up in just a few minutes' time. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.